All right, everybody, I am back with a brand new DC update. I wanted to do this update yesterday, but I was helping my brother work on his truck, and today I had a bunch of yard work to do, and it was no joke with the heat here in Arizona. Yesterday, we hit a record-breaking for that particular day of 118 degrees. Not the hottest we've ever been, but it was freaking hot. And so when I was done, I just took it easy. And so I may not have as much energy today as I normally have, but I've been out in the heat a lot over the last couple of days. But we do have a few things to look at here today. And just for a reminder for everybody about the strike going on, you've got actors and writers involved in this strike, and they are not allowed to get on social media. They are not allowed to talk about anything that is happening with, they can't help promote movies. They can't do anything like that for the time being. In fact, Blue Beetle has suspended its marketing because of the strike. This is going to affect Hollywood in a big way. And, people are just now going back to the theater, and this is going to cause a lot of problems. And I think this strike and the public's view of everything that's happening actually caused the new Mission Impossible movie, which I did do a review on. It didn't do very well over the weekend. Didn't even do as well as Indiana Jones or The Flash over the weekend. And honestly, it should do. It's a really good movie. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. It's a great summer blockbuster film to go see. But I think people are picking and choosing. The economy here in America is not real good. We have people in power in this country who are trying to keep everybody down. Things are bad. And so not everybody has the money to go to the movies, and I think people, when they do have the money, they're picking and choosing what they want to do with that money. And for some reason, Mission Impossible didn't do very well over the weekend. But on Mondays, either on Sundays or Mondays, I think I'm going to devote Sundays to a couple of videos. I think I'm going to devote Sundays to doing box office updates for the weekend and then also doing my movie updates for the week. But today I do have the DC update, and I may do the other two updates if time permits, but we will see. But let's take a look at some of these pictures that I have grabbed since the last time I did an update. Now, the first thing I have here is not directly like DC related, but because it is Christopher Nolan and he did the greatest Batman trilogy that we've had down there at DC, he came out and mentioned something interesting about how he functions as a filmmaker, and I found this fascinating. It says Christopher Nolan doesn't use email or smartphones, and when he is writing his scripts, he does so on a computer that isn't connected to the internet, which is very smart. My kids would probably say I'm a complete Luddite. I would actually resist that description. I think technology and what it can provide is amazing. My personal choice is about how involved I get. It's about the level of distraction. If I'm generating my material and writing my own scripts, being on a smartphone all day wouldn't be very useful for me. And he's right. It's about getting rid of all of the distractions. Like my studio in here is used for some very specific things and nothing outside of that. So I can appreciate his sentiment here, and I just thought that was interesting. On that same note with Christopher Nolan, it says Christopher Nolan says he will absolutely not start developing another film until the Hollywood strikes are resolved. It is a very key moment in the relationship between working people and Hollywood. This is not about me. This is not about the stars of my film. This is about jobbing actors. This is about staff writers on television shows trying to raise a family, trying to keep food on the table. And he's absolutely right. And just so you guys know what my clear stance on this issue is, you're going to see a graphic here in a few minutes about how much money David Zaslav is making. And then you got to compare that with the people in Hollywood and the actors and the writers. And actors and writers often get a bad rap. And I would agree with that to some degree, some of the sentiment with some actors and filmmakers. But at the same time, they're all working people. And I can tell you, being a professional actor myself, there's a lot involved with it. It's not just simply doing I didn't just wake up one day and say I'm going to be a voice actor. I didn't just say I'm going to start doing this and poof, I was doing it. There was a lot involved in me getting to where I am today. And people should be fairly compensated for their time and their talents. And it's the executives who have pushed them into these positions. If you want to look at a bad guy, look at the studio executives themselves. And I can tell you right now, Christopher Nolan is all about keeping the creativity with the people creating these things. and he's a very smart individual. And that's why his Batman trilogy was pretty much untouched by the studio. They let him do his own thing, which is the way it should be. So I do side with the actors and the writers in this particular deal, and we're going to look exactly at what they're striking for here in a few minutes. All right, so we have Blue Beetle. This goes back to what I said before. It said Blue Beetle will pause promotion in support of SAG-AFTRA strike. So, a lot of the DC actors are getting involved. Some people at the studios are. And somebody asked, but will they pause the release? And I don't think, as soon as this is all done, I think Blue Beetle, I think is going to come out no matter what. There are investors that are waiting to get their money back for putting money into this film. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Blue Beetle. I think out of all of the films that have been released, I do have an interest in seeing this character. I'm just afraid it's going to be too humorous based on the trailers. But I do like the look of the film. So we'll see when it comes out what my thoughts are on it. Because like I said, I can totally disassociate myself from the project, from the studios that make them, to give you an honest review on these films. And everyone knows my policy on comedy. It can definitely ruin a film. Now, this is pretty crazy, and we're going to talk about what actually has happened and what this means. It says HBO Max Europe users are frustrated as Zack Snyder's Justice League finds itself removed from the streaming platform without any form of warning. Also, the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League was pulled off of HBO's YouTube page, or I can't remember if I think it was HBO Max's YouTube page or one of those for the studio, Warner Brothers page. The HBO, or the trailer for Zack Snyder's Justice League, was actually the most watched video that Warner Brothers has ever put on YouTube. It had over 31 million views. Now, it got pulled as well. And there are reports that it's also going to be pulled off of HBO Max all over the world. Now, there are two possible reasons for this happening. The first, and the one I'm hoping for, is that Netflix got all the rights to Zack Snyder stuff. That Warner Brothers decided to sell everything that had to do with Zack Snyder over to Netflix in an effort to raise some money, and that Zack Snyder will be able to finish his vision over at his home at HBO Max. Or at Netflix, over at Netflix. I'm hoping that's what's happening. The other reason this could be happening is because of licensing issues. There were some songs that were used in the movie and in the trailer that they may have lost the rights to, and then now they can no longer use it to promote their business. That happens all the time in entertainment. It's why a lot of shows didn't make it to DVD for a very long time, or some that have never been released, or because some of the rights behind the music and some other things. And we all remember the song, for that first trailer. And my guess is that they lost the rights to it. That could be the second very plausible reason. So we have two reasons why this could have happened, but the studio has not come out and said anything about this, but it is happening. Now, I wanted to bring everybody up to date on an event that is going to be happening on Twitter. And we want to do this with any social media platform. It's Release the Air Cut, Restore the Snyderverse. These are the two hashtags we're being asked to use on the 7th anniversary of Suicide Squad. We're still trying to campaign Warner Brothers to release this stuff, and I am going to talk about what my plan would be at the very end of this video. This is on August 5th of 2023, so it is a few weeks away. We're about 3 weeks away from this, but everyone is being asked, and I may bring this up on occasion in some of my updates. So those are the two hashtags we want to use, and we want to definitely post things that have to do with Suicide Squad, the Air Cut. Now, this just made me laugh. I don't think any explanation is needed. It says exclusive. Blue Beetle star Xolo Maridueña tells us about James Gunn's reaction to the upcoming DC blockbuster, and this is via Total Film. James Gunn gave Blue Beetle a thumbs up, says Xolo. Of course he did. Why would he not? All right, now here is what's going on with the SAG-AFTRA strike. And everyone should be aware of this. Now, the biggest part of this is the AI, and I'll tell you that's going to be the big sticking point. The streaming revenue share is the other big thing. The other things they're just listing everything here, and this is this is interesting. It says SAG-AFTRA and the major studios remain at odds on a dizzying array of issues. Here's a breakdown of some of the disagreements that led to the strike. Streaming revenue share, that is one of them. Pay increases, not as big a deal. Artificial intelligence, big deal. self-taped auditions. I don't know how that's going, but with the way, with what happened with COVID, a lot of people are doing stuff on their own now. I don't know what they're asking for in regards to that. Pension and health contributions, actors access. I don't know what that means. Option periods for TV actors, background actors outside Los Angeles and New York, and performance capture. The performance capture is one of the big issues too, and that is directly tied to AI. So those are the big things, because studios want to go around actors and writers and just create stuff on their own without having to use actors or writers, which I think is going to ruin the craft entirely. And this could be why they're seeing a lot of people skipped going to see any Hollywood movies this weekend. Now, here is the report on how much major executives in the industry have been paid in the last 5 years. And this is crazy. David Zaslav is at the top of that list with $500 million. How ridiculous is that? You have the Endeavor Group, what I'm not familiar with, but Ari Emanuel has been paid $350 million. You have the Netflix, Reed Hastings, $200 million. You have Bob Iger, $200 million. Netflix, Ted Sarandos, $200 million. So if you look at Netflix, just between those two big executives, they're getting crazy money. You have Rupert Murdoch, Lachlan Murdoch, the Murdochs. That's a crazy amount of money, too, over there at Fox. You have Comcast, Brian Roberts, $170 million. And then you have, Joseph over there at Paramount, $150 million. And you have to divide this by 5 years. So you can see how much money they're making each year. And this is just insane, while the actors and writers are starving. So it's getting pretty crazy out there. Now, this is something I had mentioned in a previous video. This goes back to the podcast that James Gunn had done when he sat down with Michael Rosenbaum. It says, DC Studios CEO James Gunn has explained how his revamped DCU won't be a clone of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, even comparing it to Game of Thrones in one respect. And this has to do with, he discussed in this podcast, for people who haven't seen it, he discusses how, all the Marvel characters are just out there as their characters. There's no secret identities. And he said the secret identities in the DC universe are going to be a huge part of what they do over at DC. It has to be convincing. And that's where this quote came from and what it means. All right, so there's my DC update for the day. Tomorrow I'll do another update kind of explaining what I would do if I was in charge and some kind of the things that they've missed because of the route they decided to go with the DCU and everything. I think it's just a shame. Too bad hindsight isn't 2020, because they could be in much better financial shape today had they continued down the path they were going, even with a writer strike. But there's definitely a path they could still follow if they chose to do that, unless they have sold everything over to Netflix in regards to the DCEU. But I'll definitely come back with a video tomorrow discussing that very issue. All right, I do appreciate it. We will see you on the next update.